Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm back again. This is Robert Phoenix with a little 420 broadcast, and it's 9:30 a.m. But I'm here. I'm with you. You're with me, and we are all together. Welcome to 15 Minutes of Flame. Um, I've just been compiling a lot of goodies, a lot of goodies for today's show. I took last night off because I was on the wall, or I'd hit the wall. Wasn't on the wall. I had hit the wall. So let me do this. I can't really edit it real time. Let's see. We got one watching now. We'll get a few more people in here. I just need to. Maybe I should do some calisthenics exercises here in paradise while everybody kind of shows up. Oh, there we go. One, two, one, two, one, two, one, two. There we go. Trying to loosen up the hips. There we go. A little of this. We got three watching now. Hey, Robert, how's it going? I'm just doing a little calisthenics here. Hi, Michelle. Nice to see you. Maybe you can join me. Let's breathe in. Let's breathe out. Let's breathe in. Let's breathe out. Oh, yes. Breathe in. Breathe out. All right. Starting to populate the halls of Amente. Here we go. Yes, it's a Monday. We get a little bit of a later start on Monday, but I got a lot to cover. A lot to cover. A lot to cover today. So do this other thing while I'm waiting for folks to come on in. By the way, a big thank you once again to Jordan Foltz for being on the show on Friday. If you haven't discovered Friday's show or Jordan Foltz, I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. It's a good show, really good show. I apologize for the glitches in the audio portion of the show. We figured them out, so it's all good. It's all good. So one of the things that I want to do now at the beginning of each show is, and I'm not, I would say that am I a religious person? I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. I would like to think on some level I am. Am I a spiritual person? I'd like to think on some level I am as well. And do I pray? Sometimes I pray. And sometimes I do my best to kind of live my life as a prayer, which has been sort of a conviction for a long time. But I've had a couple of very interesting emails come in my direction about this show, and not about the content of the show, but more about the signal. I've had two people, and it's not just the show, by the way. It has to do with a digital transmission through Zoom, because I did one email I got on the heels of a webinar I did, which was private. Another email I got was from somebody who'd watched a couple of shows on YouTube. And the first email came from somebody I did not know, and I thought it was rather extreme in some regards. And then the second email I got was from somebody that I did know, a client who I've read for on a couple of occasions, and somebody I consider to be very solid, very, very solid. And one of the things that she shared with me is that she felt like that there were two signals going on during the YouTube transmission. And there was like my signal, which is from me to you, and that there was a signal underneath. And that she intuited and interpreted this signal as actually being quite dark. So when I get two emails coming from two separate people under two different sets of circumstances, and they're both saying something very similar, I listen. So here's what I'm going to do at the beginning of every show, and I hope it doesn't turn you guys off because I need to do this. I need to do this for my protection and for your protection as well. So let's get, I'm sorry, but let's get used. I don't have to apologize for this, but I do want to read the Lord's Prayer before every show today. That's it. Every show you're going to get this for me and for you. This is really to try to keep this signal as clear as possible. And we know what they can do with these dark technologies. Here we go. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us our daily bread and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. That's about as biblical it will probably get around here. I just need to do that. I need to do that at the beginning of every transmission because I'm a little troubled and concerned and not surprised that people are sending me emails about something else going on underneath. So I'm doing my best to keep the signal clear. Okay. All right, let's check in with you guys in Chatlandia. See where you're at. It works every time. Amen. Yeah, I'm not apologizing. Yeah, I caught myself there. Yep. Bonnie says that is exactly what I was thinking about this morning. Yep. I was thinking about this in the shower this morning. Good plan, Robert. Another good protective prayer is the Gayatri in Sanskrit. I like the extended version personally. I'll find the extended one. I'll read whatever I need to read. Maybe a Misaki pyramid would augment the prayer. Could be. I've got some. I don't have the power generated pyramid. Intriguing. What did they notice specifically? Shauna says webinar on Saturday kept cutting out for me. It was like, okay, something's trying to stop the transmission. I do think that these things are very fractal. Evil hates Psalm 23, they retreat. Thank you, Ani. That's right. I do it all the time because I can feel the infiltration wanting to take hold. You guys are the best. You guys are the absolute best. Man. Hey, Carolina. Nice to see you. You are the best. Yeah, it's just going to happen every day. I'll do the extended version, whatever I need to do, because I need to keep this transmission in line clear and clean for me and for you. I don't want anybody taking advantage of this broadcast, this transmission, to get underneath whatever it is that I'm saying and essentially make your life a living hell. Let's just call it the way it is. And they've got the technology. I'll never forget when I first experienced this. It was back when G.H.W. Bush was president. And if you look back in that time, pre-Gulf War II and post-Gulf War II, the invasion of Iraq after 9/11, he did so many press conferences. He was always in the Rose Garden. Like that guy did a myriad of press conferences from the Rose Garden, which Trump doesn't do. Trump's Rose Garden is now the crisis management team and those briefings. Those are his Rose Garden. Obama didn't really do the Rose Garden either very much. That was not his thing. And I don't remember Obama doing a lot of press conferences. He did the State of the Union stuff. He was a State of the Union guy. Trump doesn't do very many State of the Union addresses, but that was kind of Obama's message to the people. Anyway, when I used to watch Bush, I couldn't stand him. Like my contempt bordered on hate with Bush. And yet when I would watch these press conferences, I would feel kind of absurdly happy. And I couldn't figure that out. Like, why am I feeling happy? Why am I getting a good feeling about watching this traitorous creep? And then I came to the conclusion that they were actually hacking the signal, that they were running some kind of frequency, happiness, joy, contentment, maybe a blend of all three. Like if you get into the work of Huel de Clark, who talks about that everything exists at a frequency, states of emotion, states of consciousness, disease, it's all a frequency. Then they can just dial up that frequency and then shoot it through. And right around at the same time, they were getting rid of the analog transmission. So everybody was going digital. They were going digital. So they could do a lot of things with that. Like the analog transmission didn't really go away. They just weren't broadcasting it on television, right? I mean, before you'd have your antenna up by the chimney, you dial in, you pick up the analog signal, and it becomes pictures on the screen. Well, all what they wound up doing was they just weren't transmitting the picture, the sound, and the image through the analog signal. Those towers, they're still there, right? They're still there. So they're still transmitting an analog signal. And by the way, analog is the language of the cells. You know, we are magnetic. We are magnetic entities. So we resonate or we don't. That's how this thing works. You like somebody, you resonate with them. You're attracted to them. You don't like somebody, you are repelled by them, which is another instance of magnetism, attraction, and then repulsion or repelling, right? This is how it works. And those are analog, those are analog technologies. When you go back, and I've talked about this before, and you look at the production of music up until probably around late 80s, when the digital signal and digital technology begins to kind of take over the production of music. But if you look at the production of music, how music was created was it was created in a studio. In those studios, especially the earlier ones, a lot of them were driven by tube technologies. Now, eventually, post Roswell, that all becomes flipped over and switched over to transistors, but it was still an analog experience. Well, why? Because they were recording those sessions on magnetic tape. So there's a band on a piece of tape that records the music, and it's magnetic. So they're not just recording the actual sound, but they're recording the emotion from one magnetic source to another. And then they would take that magnetic tape and then they would master it, and they would create something called an acetate. Well, first of all, they would create a disc, like a hard disc, a master disc. And that master disc would be made out of some form of metal, right? All the grooves would be on this master disc. And all those grooves, right, they were tiny, 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 tiny pieces of magnetic bandwidth. So we're still in the analog realm. And then they would create an acetate or a test copy. And that acetate would be the transference from that metal disc, which is the master, onto the acetate. And then once they had the acetate, they could listen to it and say, okay, well, this is how it sounds in this medium. And then once they had the acetate approved, then they would create vinyl. And even the vinyl itself would be another generation of the magnetic transmission, the analog transmission from state to state to state. So when we listen to music, one of the reasons why music was so powerful and effective is that we listen to it not only with our ears, but with our entire body. Our cells resonated with the music. We resonated with the emotion. That changed with the advent of digital technology. And when digital technology comes in, what happens is that the analog signal, that wide bandwidth of emotion, gets reprocessed and turned into zeros and ones. It goes from being a multitude of potential into a binary program. So there, if you look on CDs, you could see something like ADD. There'll be a little three-letter code, ADD, and that's not attention deficit disorder. It's analog, digital, digital. So that's about as close as you can get to an analog recording, meaning that the actual music was recorded in an analog studio. And by the way, the studios became digital. So you weren't just recording on tape anymore. You were recording on a computer on a hard drive, and the hard drive was converting the emotion into binary numbers, and it becomes a simulacra of the experience. So you're not really experiencing true emotion. You're experiencing something where the emotion is actually taken out of it. So they can do all sorts of stuff in post production. They can actually add levels of emotion back in with post production. They can do this. They can add frequencies into the actual recording, but they're not the frequencies that were being generated, or the vibrations, which are different. Vibrations and frequencies are different. Like 5G is a frequency, you're a vibration. They're different. One is more digital and the other is analog. But they've found that everything has a frequency level, and they've been able to tweak this stuff. Anyway, back then, when Bush was doing his speeches, I couldn't figure out why I was happy. I was like I was kind of pissed off. Like, why am I happy watching this cocksucker, you know? And then I figured out that no, there's something going on here. The frequency is being altered, shifted. So this gets back to sort of the original uh, subject of the day, which is what's going on underneath this. So every day now, whether it's that version of the Lord's Prayer or another version, or the extended version, the Diplo remix version of the Lord's Prayer, you're going to get it. We're going to get it, because I don't want anybody listening to this to experience any darkness, any kind of misalignment, fear, or anxiety. That's not what I'm here to do. That is just not what I'm here to do. What I am here to do is try to keep you up to speed and what's going on in terms of the ever evolving theater of the mind and theater of the world. Over the weekend, we had a number of protests because people were getting ready. People are getting pissed off. People are getting restless. People are getting furtive. People are getting impatient. And there's some very interesting pieces around the protests, which I think are good. I mean, they're good, and let's keep the heat on. I feel like it's important on some level to do this, right? But look at what happened with France. Look at what happened with Spain. Look at what happened with Italy. Look at what happened with Hong Kong. All of a sudden, all these protest movements were wiped out overnight. Wiped out overnight. Okay, so there's a pattern here, and if indeed we're going to have more protests, and I believe we will, until somebody caves. And by the way, Christy Whitmer did cave. She decided that she was going to back off on some of her dictatorial stances around what you can and cannot do in the state of Michigan. So this is good, right? But just remember, when those protests moved, the yellow vests have been going on for a year. Hong Kong was reaching epic proportions. Spain and Italy, again, kind of people getting pissed off, just silenced it overnight. Coronavirus, silenced it overnight. Boom. Right? So again, if we begin to protest more in this country, which I do believe is coming, when there's an action, there's a reaction. And I'm not saying not to. I'm just saying, look at what happened. We weren't really protesting here. That was really not happening, because people were able to do whatever they want. They were able to go to sporting events. They were able to go out to eat, go to bars, hang out. Now those things are winding down, and well, even in many cases and places, non-existent. Okay, so maybe this is where it begins to happen here. Now, what was interesting about, and I don't have the link, but I can tell you that I did some research, and there were a number of kind of websites and Facebook pages that were set up very, very quickly to stop to start these protests and to open America back up. And most of them were opened by the same person or the same group, and within a 48-hour time period. You can look this up. GoDaddy has the information. So it looks like that there is a group, or our group, that is encouraging this. It's not just like, hey, it's AstroTurf, but is it negative AstroTurf, or is it positive AstroTurf? but it's definitely being sort of guided and led in some ways. Do I have a problem with that? We'll see. Depends on who's behind it. Depends on who's driving this thing. Trump seems now to have really shifted his emphasis and focus on a state level. Liberate Michigan, liberate Virginia, liberate Ohio. So here comes Mr. Gemini's son, Uranus' son, Lord Master of Chaos, coming in and basically inciting some level of insurrection with the states. Probably, is it a bad idea? Nobody else is helping people out. Nobody else is saying, hey, you got to stand up for your constitutionally given right to assemble in a church. And it's interesting because people can't meet in churches, and they can't have close contact. But you watch these governors from every single state; they're all bunched up together. Like there is no social distancing when they have their little task force. They've got to get makeup and they've got to look good for their twice or thrice weekly press conferences. And so does some robot do that for them? No. You can't go to church, but you can go to a liquor store. You can't buy seeds and plants and things that are important, but you can go buy a lottery ticket. Like I could go right down here to the mini mart, I can get a bunch of lottery tickets. There are tons of inconsistencies. Private sector jobs have been blown up, decimated, many of which will not return, but have they laid off one government employee? Ask yourself that question. So there tends to be these parallel realities that are taking place right now. Again, as we approach the true node in Gemini, we're seeing this happen. We're seeing this take place. So the protest movement, which is I think going to gain steam and it's going to pick up momentum, can be. I think it's probably a good thing. Just remember the Hegelian dialectic: problem, reaction, solution. At what point does a protest movement become so volatile, or they have plants, or they've got people with swastikas and they equate this thing with white supremacy? When is that going to happen? When does the guard come in? These are all things that I think are really important issues to address before the fact, not during the fact, and not after the fact, because we like to stay ahead of the curve here. All right, I've got a lot to share with you guys today, a lot. So what happened over the weekend? Let me show you what happened over the weekend. And you guys are probably aware of this. Now, I didn't spend any time watching this piece of utterly contemptible trash propaganda and programming. Though there's a big concert. You can't go to a concert, but you can stay at home. You can stay at home and watch all of the most important artists on the planet sing together for the World Health Organization. One world together at home. And we have this red dot at home. Like red is the color of crisis. It is the color of crisis. And the World Health Organization is very interesting. So it sits on top of the UN map of the world, the flat earth map. And then we have the staff and the caduceus, which is the cult of the serpent, and of course, the double helix of the DNA. But during this concert, apparently this global citizen was being broadcast. Let me just play a little of this. I got to make sure they know the sound. This global citizen was being broadcast on the top of the screen the whole time. You are no longer a citizen of the United States or a member of the United States. You are a global citizen, a global citizen. One world together, $128 million, $127 million for the WHO. There's Trump. He's defunding the WHO, right? That's what they're talking about. So these are the artists that were involved. Let's take a look. Adam Lambert, Alicia Keys, Amy Poehler, Andra Day, Andrew Bocelli, Angela, Anita, Annie Lennox, Aquafina, Becky G, Ben Platt, Billie Eilish, Billy Joe Armstrong, Billy Ray Cyrus. They had to have 3 Billies in there, didn't they? Black Coffee, Bridget Moynihan. That's Tom Brady's ex-wife. Interesting. Mother of one of his kids. Burna Boy, Camila Cabello, Casper Nyquist, Celine Dion. I guess she somehow found a couple of adrenochrome packets laying around. Chris Martin, that's the guy from Coldplay. Christine the Queens, Common, Connie Britton, blah, blah, blah. Ellen DeGeneres, Eddie Vedder, Don Cheadle, Jack Black, Jack Johnson, Jackie Chung, James Mack, Jennifer Hudson, Jennifer Lopez, Jesse J, Jesse Reyes, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmon, John Legend, Keith Urban, Kerry Washington, Kesha, Lady Antebellum, Lady Gaga, Lang Lang, Leslie Doom. I mean, here we go. It just goes on and on and on and on. Right. And there's your corporate lords that are sponsoring all this. Pepsi, State Farm, Teneo, Verizon, Vodafone, Johnson & Johnson, IBM. Geez, these are the people that are going to be running the planet post 311. And a few other their best corporate buddies and partners. So this went on over the weekend to drive their message home that you are under house arrest and we're all in this together. We're all in this together. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that just wonderful that we're all in it together? And by the way, you are a global citizen. You're a global citizen. That whole nationalist stuff, that is so 2016. That is so 2016. The new green economy, Agenda 21, Agenda 2020, it is on, kid. And you want to be on the winning team. That's what you want to be on. See all these smart people, all these talented people, all these famous people, they're on board. They're on board. And by identifying with them, that gives you the entree and the transference that you're on the winning team. This is what I call front runner culture. And it goes back to the conversation that Jordan and I had on Friday, or part of it, which is conformity versus non-conformity. And conformity is you want to be on the winning team. And front runner culture is a psychopathic mindset. Because front runner culture says, I'm going to be part of this gang. This is the important gang. This is the smart gang. These are the smart kids. These are the smart people. These are the tastemakers. These are the trend makers. Oh, my friends like them. My friends think they're interesting. My friends think they're relevant. So if I want to have some kind of social interaction and I want to feel like I belong and have a community, I'm going to be a part of that team. It's front runner culture. I used to work with this guy in San Diego. He was an interesting character, a very interesting character. His name was Paradise, and he was part of this hip hop group. Was it the Poor Righteous Teachers, or oh man, I forget. It was one of these like Malachi York inspired hip hop groups from New York City. And so he was, into that whole sort of Moorish science stuff, and he was kind of interesting. But he was such a front runner. If a team, I'd ask him, so what's your favorite baseball team? What's your favorite football team? What's your favorite basketball team? Because his cue was right on the other side of me, and it was always the winning team. It was always the winning team. I was like, gee, I just noticed that. Aren't you from New York City? Well, yeah, I am. Well, don't you live in San Diego? Well, yeah, I do. So how come you don't like these teams? Like, I think he was a Yankee fan because the Yankees were winning back then. Well, aren't you a Knicks fan? Did you grow up as a Knicks fan? Oh, no, yeah, no, I'm a Laker fan now. I'm a Laker fan now. Oh, I see. And who was like big in football at that time? I think it might have been, I don't know, the Steelers maybe. It was the early 2000s. I think it might have been the Steelers. And so, oh, I'm a Steeler fan. Well, how come you're not a Jet fan? How come you're not a Giant fan? How come you're not a Charger fan? You live in San Diego. Oh, no, no. So he would always pick these winning teams. Well, I used to like this team. Oh, well, why did you switch? Well, they're more interesting. Well, he wanted to be with, I get it. People want to identify with being a winner, but there's also no loyalty there. No loyalty whatsoever. It's kind of the same mindset. It's what I call the front runner consciousness. And I see it all the time. I see it all the time. They'd rather be on the winning team, even if the winning team is not so quietly fascistic, as long as it's winning in a lot of ways. Right? So when you look at the list of those artists, and there are people that identify with them. Oh, look, oh, look, oh, look. Oh, look, oh, they're in there too. Oh, they're in there too. Connect the dot, connect the dot, connect the dot, connect the dot. And all these associations in the brain get connected. And if there's some level of transference and projection onto those figures, the more the merrier. Therefore, the case is made and stated. I'm down with this. They're down with this. I'm down with this too. So what's going on? What is happening? What is really, really taking place? So let's try to get up to the minute now. Let's try to get up to the minute. Besides the protest and a little bit of a retreat from, Christine Whitmer, there seems to be this slow creep. Now, the next level of the slow creep is the mask. People in San Antonio are being told to wear masks. And by the way, I had a conversation with somebody yesterday whose brother is on the police force in cousin, not brother, cousin's on the police force in San Antonio, and basically told her, we're not going to enforce the masks because none of them believe in it. So San Antonians, take that into consideration. I'm just saying. I'm just telling you this. And if 1,000 people aren't wearing masks, what are they going to do? Are they going to mass arrest 1,000 people? Is that what's going to happen? This is a test. They're going to see what people are willing to accept. And I know here in Little Fredericksburg, Texas, the more I go out, the more I see masks. I see people jogging in fucking masks. I can't believe that. It's like, you're wearing a mask and you're jogging? Are you kidding me? Jesus. This is not is there, maybe all the masked people should go have their own town, and all the unmasked people should have their own town. And the unmasked people, their town should not be called FEMA town. But I'm seeing more and more. This is the slow creep. Okay. The next level is testing. The testing is coming. And I'll show you exactly what I mean by that. New York City, always on the cutting edge. Always on the cutting edge of medical fascism and friendly tyranny. Cuomo, statewide antibody testing to give a snapshot to assess reopening. From Newsday, New York will embark on an aggressive testing program to help determine the full scope of the coronavirus pandemic, a vital step as officials envision how to reopen the state's economy. Governor Andrew Cuomo announced Sunday. The program starts Monday with a 3-person random survey across 3,000, not 3, my God. That'd be over fast, wouldn't it? A 3,000-person random survey across the state to determine how many people have COVID-19 antibodies in their system, a sign that they had disease but have since recovered. By the way, Sweden is probably about a week away from accomplishing full herd immunity. Think about that. We're going to do that in the most aggressive way in the nation. We're going to sample people in the state, thousands of people in the state, across the state, to find out if they have the antibodies. Why? Why do they want to find out if they have the antibodies? I'll tell you why. Because they're going to grab that blood, they're going to grab the antibody to say, how can we make this coronavirus weapon deadlier next time so they don't develop the damn antibodies. That's what they're going to do. This will tell us for the first time what percent of the population actually has had the coronavirus and is now at least short-term immune to the virus. This will be the first true snapshot of what we are dealing with. Oh, okay. Participants in the random testing will be recruited at supermarkets in different regions. Supermarkets, I guess, because they're the only thing that's open. Recruited. Nassau County Executive Laura Curran said the testing would include an unidentified site in Nassau. Those who agree to take part will be asked to provide a fingerstick blood sample, which will then be processed at the state's Wadsworth labs using its IgG immunological test. The Food and Drug Administration recently approved the state's own antibody test, Cuomo said. So this is voluntary for now. Any plan that is going to start to reopen the economy has to be based on data. And that means it has to be based on testing. Cuomo said, how do you get up to scale quickly? How do you find out where we really are right now in terms of this virus? The governor announced the plan after noting another day of improvements in the trajectory of the coronavirus, which has infected 242,000 people in the state, blah, 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 blah. Figures, facts. And we know that a lot of them are fudged. This is a reality check. With all the good news and the reductions, we still have 1,100 people yesterday came in and tested positive. It's a coronavirus. There are many different strains of corona, right? Many different strains. Once we're starting to do the antibody test to find out how high antibody levels, we can see who's protected from further infection. Ooh, of course they want to see that. Definitely want to see that because they want to work it out for the next time. So said people don't recover so quickly. This is my humble opinion. The president said he's also preparing to use the Defense Production Act to increase the production of testing swabs. Great. So we have the masks, we have the testing. This is the slow creep. This is the rollout. We're going to stop everything. We're going to create the problem, right? The reaction is stop everything. Now we're moving into the solution phase. The Hegelian dialectic is moving into phase 3. And this is where it gets dangerous, in my humble opinion. So this goes on and on. The numbers speak for themselves. They are staggering. Blah, 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 blah. For perspective, before the crisis, our hospitals had 2,300 beds to take care of every kind of illness. Balone said fully 2/3 of those beds are occupied just by COVID-19 patients. Again, we have to really be very, we have to have a lot of circumspection around the so-called facts, the stats and the data, because in many cases it's fudged and has been fudged for a very long time. They fudge stats and facts and data all the time to support any kind of narrative that they want to be able to essentially insert into your consciousness. Because people have some kind of abstract relationship with facts or data, and they do this all the time. And they even do this with test studies. Like they will create certain tests and they'll essentially narrow the parameters or only use a certain subset. Like if Natasha Lloyd is in chat, she knows exactly what I'm talking about. Natasha is and I bet you Jennifer Fitzgerald understands this too, because they will actually craft certain tests so they get the results from what they want, excluding the data from what they don't want. And they'll create the parameters as close to getting their preconceived outcome as they can. And then they'll kind of winnow out the variables. This is how this thing works. And so once they get their test, they'll sell it. The manufacturer will sell it under a very brief kind of trial period or no trial period at all. and they'll fast track a drug, or they'll fast track a vaccine, whatever these are, based on the parameters that they already hardwired into this thing, knowing ahead of time that that's what they wanted to get out of it. That's why people they commission to do these tests, and they do them in very specific ways because they want to control the outcome. So we know that exists. And why all of a sudden are governments so invested in our health? Why? We've been drinking shitty water, shitty fluoridated water for years. Okay, a neurotoxin. We're breathing contagion from our skies. They're allowing essentially fish genes to be crossed with tomato genes and who knows what else and put into our food. And they don't care. They don't give jack shit about any of that stuff. None. Our hospitals, we have thousands of cases of people falling ill and dying on a yearly basis to MRSA, which takes place in hospitals, and MRSA and sepsis and things going terribly wrong. Do they really care about that? Really? Vaccines are produced under a number of different conditions, some of which are very unsterile. Do they have oversight over every single lab and have somebody report back every 3 months on the condition of those labs? No, they don't. So this idea that the government really cares about us is ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous, because there are so many examples of them turning the other direction, turning a blind eye about our care. That this idea that now all of a sudden they're the great benefactors is entirely laughable. Entirely laughable. So let's just get that out front. Who else seems to think that they really care about us is their partners in crime, who are the corporations. And the corporations have top-down messaging now. And I'm going to play you a video that's going to blow your mind, okay? It's going to show you the top-down messaging and the programming that takes place under what we now consider a crisis. Now, remember, 9/11 and Kennedy were both very traumatic events, and they happened like that, right? Like that. And so the idea behind controlling or hacking somebody's consciousness is you want to traumatize them. When you traumatize them, you split them. You split their attention. Why? Because the brain normally has to fragment itself in order to deal with the trauma, right? So you go with the trauma. So we have everyday consciousness. And let's say something traumatic happens. That everyday consciousness has to go back here so that this other consciousness comes up here to deal with the trauma. What they want to do is they want to get back here to the everyday consciousness. And they want to insert the trauma so that you're living with it on a daily basis. This is how viruses actually work on some level, particularly computer virus. So what's going on now? We are experiencing trauma. This is a traumatic event. People are losing their jobs. People are losing their businesses. People are losing their livelihoods. People are losing their joie de vivre in some ways, the things that kept them involved in life, whether you like it or not, whether you think it's important or not, things like sports. And it's not just sports out there on a observer level, fan level, right? People play sports. There are things like high school sports, youth sports, Little League, soccer, AAU basketball, football, gymnastics, tennis. These things are not happening. People have lost their connection to these things now. Very important stuff in their lives. So there's a ton of loss going on. And when there's loss, what is there? There's trauma. You lose somebody, It's traumatic. You lose a loved one, you lose a parent, you lose a pet, you lose your job, you lose your home. We've just lost an entire way of being. Now, I could make an argument that some of what we lost wasn't that great to begin with. I'm okay with that on some level. I'm more concerned about what's coming to replace those things, which we'll talk about in a moment here. So this is how trauma works. Then once they got you in trauma, then they insert the program. And I'll show you what the program actually looks like. This is going to blow your mind.
When we first opened our doors.
Since 1926.
Since 1978.
For 60 years.
For 75 years.
For over 80 years.
In 90 years.
Over 100 years.
Nationwide has been on your side.
Restaurants have always been there for you.
Nissan has been with you through thick and thin.
We will do what we've always done.
Take care of people.
We're people.
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 People and family.
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 Family. Family.
Family.
Family.
Family.
Family.
Families are families.
Families.
Even now. Especially now.
Especially now.
Right now.
Now more than ever.
More than ever.
Today, more than ever.
Today, more than ever.
In times like this.
At times like these.
During these difficult times.
In these troubled times.
Challenging times.
Trying times.
In these times of uncertainty.
During this time of great uncertainty.
During these uncertain times.
During these uncertain times.
In uncertain times.
In uncertain times. Uncertain times.
Unprecedented times.
Unprecedented times.
Unprecedented times.
This unprecedented moment in our history.
It's time of social distancing.
While things have slowed down.
As we turn more inside.
While the doors may be closed.
While the distance between us has gotten bigger.
The more we stay apart,
we still find ways to stay close, even when we're apart.
Even if we can't stand closer than 6 feet.
We can all stay connected to work, school, and most importantly, to each other.
There's still ways to touch each other.
All without leaving the comfort and safety of your home.
Without leaving the safety of your home.
From home.
Home.
Your home.
At home. 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 Home.
Home. Home.
That's the key.
Buick and GMC are here to help.
Con Edison is here to help.
Here to help.
Our teams are here.
We are here.
We're here.
We're here.
here for you.
Here for you.
We're here for you.
We're here for you. We are here for you.
We're here for you.
We are here for you. We'll be here for you.
Runnings is here for you.
We're still here for you.
We're with you. We're part of your community.
So you can trust us.
You can count on us.
And we'll get through this. Together.
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 Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
And together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
MasterCard.
Wow. Wow. Where do I start with that? Well, first of all, it's pretty clear that somebody is writing the script. And that somebody is probably an artificial intelligence program. They're completely writing the script. And that script is coming down. Now, there are about, I think, 4 or 5 main sorts of advertising agencies, like big ones, and they have multiple clients. So they're running basically the same program through each of their clients. But it's not just the same program. It's the same words, it's the same sentiment, the same feeling. And what are they trying to do? They're trying to get into your consciousness through a time of trauma. And by the way, astrologically, this is so Cancerian. We are so now deeply embedded into the bowels of that Cancerian true node. That you're at home, and that's where you are with your family. And you're thinking about things like safety and security and safety and security and safety and security and safety and security, which are all very Cancerian issues, right? They are taking the true node / north node, and they're injecting you with it right now to the point where it's kind of overstimulating your field in a lot of ways. And what they're also doing is, I talked about this on the webinar with Heather on Saturday. If you guys, I don't know if Heather's going to make that public or not. We haven't really talked about that, but one of the things that I talked about was how we're moving astrologically from the 10th house to the 11th house in terms of governance. Because for a long time, we've been 10th house, and I've been talking about this for a while now. It's nothing that I haven't really broached before, but we've been in the 10th house environment for, a number of years, which is that government is going to rule, government is going to determine, the governmental hierarchies are going to establish law, and they're going to execute law. And corporations are in that realm as well, the 10th house. But because of where we are and kind of where they want to shift and morph things, that the architects of this so-called reality want to move us out of the 10th house, because governments imply that there are countries. Governments imply that there are borders, invisible borders. There is a government here in Fredericksburg, Texas. And then there is a government down the road in Kerrville. They have their own governments, their own version, their own statutes, their own bylaws. There's a government in San Antonio, their own statutes, ordinances, and bylaws. San Antonio, you got to wear a mask. Here, you don't have to wear a mask. Right? So by association, governments represent boundaries and borders. And theoretically, those boundaries and borders would also exist with what can be done to you or not done to you vis-a-vis, in this country's case, the Bill of Rights or the Constitution, right? But that's changing now. And things are getting moved over to the 11th house. And in the 11th house, it is not ruled by government. The 11th house is groups and organizations. So who have the big players been and promoted during this crisis? The WHO, the NIH, CDC, FDA, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, 11th house. You see what's going on here? We're moving from the 10th house to the 11th house. From being a member of a country to a global citizen. That is a world without boundaries and without borders, because there's no government. So what are corporations doing? You just saw it. They're positioning themselves to be the ambassadors of the 11th house. We're all in this together, 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 together. And each and every one of them, by doing those same commercials or versions of the same commercial, are creating their network, their bond, and they're saying, we are 11th house entities now. We're not hanging out in the 10th house anymore because we care about you. And we're all sharing the same message. one of universality. Now, I talked about this months ago when the Fortune 200 all got together in the same room and said, we're going to put people before profit, which is a bunch of bullshit. What they're basically saying is, we're going to move away from the 10th house model and we're going to move into the 11th house model, but we're still going to control the narrative because you're still going to have to do business with us. We're going to change the messaging. And that's exactly what's happening. And this is why, people like Anthony Fauci and to a lesser extent, Tedros, to a greater extent, Bill Gates, the Gates Foundation, that these people are being propped up and supported because they are the new ambassadors of the 11th house. Not my 11th house. They're not welcome in my 11th house. But in general, do you see where I'm going with that? And this top-down decision making is also not just in terms of the messaging, but it's also is very much related to the methodology and what comes out of this shift, this global shift. And the 11th house is the ruler of Aquarius, or Aquarius rules the 11th house. So when we talk about Aquarius, what are we talking about? We're talking about, the new age, Saturn and Aquarius, right? Saturn used to be the home of Aquarius before they got exiled to Uranus. Best move Aquarius ever made was when it got exiled to Uranus, in my opinion. But now it's coming back home, right? In a lot of ways, it's returning to Saturn, which is where its original assignation was. So now it's becoming more commodified, more co-opted. And Saturn is the planet that rules the 10th house. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing this fusion now between this 10th house and Capricornian kind of legacy and morphing into something new. So Aquarius has returned home to Saturn, and it's going to play by Saturn's rules now. And Saturn is defining, what this new world is going to look like. And it will be, again, cognitively dissonant. A lot of this goes back to the conversation with Jordan on Friday, and that on the one hand, it's going to look and feel warm and fuzzy and homey, and we're all together, but underneath it, it is going to be completely different and have a much darker, much deeper kind of techno-fascist, 21st century feudal state mentality. And that's the way it is. That's where it's going. They're going to appear to have your own best interest at heart, to make sure that they care about you. And if you don't follow the program and the protocols for following their version of care, you're going to be in big trouble. Big trouble. Let's see how benign and how caring and loving they are if you say, no, this is not what I agree to. This is not what I consent to. And again, I just want to also, before I move on to the next piece, I also want to illustrate that not at one step along the way, has the little dictator known as Tony Fauci, has he ever talked about strengthening your immune system? He's never spoken about that. Never. You never hear Bill Gates talking about strengthening your immune system. You never hear anybody talking about strengthening your immune system. Vitamin C, liposomal vitamin C. Yeah, we recommend that. This will help you. It may not be everything, but it'll certainly help you. Oh, yeah, zinc is good too. Absolutely. Yep. Not everything. It could help you. Question in the back. What about vitamin D? Essential. I know a lot of people can't go outside and get the wonderful vitamin D from the sun. So maybe a vitamin D supplement can, be really helpful for you. We don't hear that. You know why? They don't want you to hear that. They have their narrative in place. And their narrative is, you're going to get goddamn well and better when we tell you, and that's going to be when we cook up this vaccine, which they say now would be ready by the fall. This is what's coming. So the slow creep, masks, okay, we're going to do the masks. What about the testing? Okay, the testing's coming next. Before they could even say, hey, look, before you go into the store, you're going to have to get an antibody test. No, I don't. No, I don't. Well, it's the store's rules. So what are you going to do at that point? That's a private business, by the way. They can make up their rules. They can make up their rules. That's their business. You don't have to shop there. But if it's kind of a ubiquitous, and we've seen how ubiquity now is the norm. Just watch that. Watch that commercial or the video again. And I'll put a link to that video as well if you want to share that with people. It's very powerful, very, very powerful. We can see the nature of ubiquity. So you've got to find the anomaly and the outliers. Okay. So what's next? How are they going to implement the next phase and the next step? Because we've already talked about the slow creep. Masks, antibodies, third, tracking. Let me introduce you to LifeKey, a connected companion. From personal medical data to family connection and notifications, we're taking wearables to a new place. Ladies and gentlemen, the Smart Strap. LifeKey Smart Straps are waterproof, comfortable, and stylish enough for everyday adventure. Ooh, isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? So you can buy these things. So the LifeKey Smart Strap essentially takes your data, real-time data, and connects you up to a grid. And if anything happens to you in your medical an emergency, your medical history is then broadcast. It's broadcast through the grid, and first responders are notified, and all these, so this is theoretically for people that are like in the back, back country. You see, they're all kind of active. There's a kid, there's here, I'll show you, jogging, bike riding, skateboarding. So the Mountains and Miles Smart Strap, all these different smart straps. There's the kids, pop camo, blue. So LifeKey is, look, people keep buying these things. You just see them pop up here. Watch, look. Every, someone in Kansas City, added card, adjustable smart strap. People are buying this stuff like crazy. I mean, we think they are. And that's what it's saying. Pop up again right here. We'll see. There it is. Someone in Miami. First responders. See it, scan it. We developed LifeKey to empower you to access important medical data when it's needed, especially in an emergency. 6-pointed star. Using your unlocked smartphone, simply hold it over the LifeKey symbol on any LifeKey device to access the person's data. If your smartphone is an Apple device built before 2018, you'll need to have the LifeKey app installed to enable the scanner. What happens? For them, when LifeKey is scanned, the emergency contacts associated with this person will be notified. Automatically, the notification will include their GPS location. You'll receive important details provided by this person or their care providers intended for you. Okay. Ambassadors. Let's see who's behind LifeKey. Who are the ambassadors? Oh, these are people that use it. The Sea Cats, Bozeman, Montana. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So LifeKey is, there was a video that got pulled from YouTube, and it was an actual prototype that LifeKey had designed. And because people had found this video, it got pulled. And essentially, LifeKey's prototype has 3 stages of where you are with coronavirus testing: pending, clear, and the alert, which is infected. So they actually have a function built into LifeKey for this. So there are all these companies now that are trying to scramble very quickly to get in on the biotech information economy, tracking, surveillance. This is the next phase of the slow creep. So can you take the band off? Sure, you can. But very likely that you're going to need the band to get into public events. We'll scan the band. Where are you? If you're infected, not only will you not be able to go to a place, but they'll say, can you please step aside for a moment? And because of LifeKey and its ubiquitous potential, I would say within 10 minutes, somebody would be there to kind of escort you out. Who knows what happens? I'm not being paranoid here. This is how this stuff would work, right? I mean, just do the math on it. So this is where we're headed. Now, what happens if you don't have a LifeKey? Well, you're probably not going to be able to get into places, period. You may not be able to shop. You may have to send somebody to go shopping for you. You know, and if they're going, and if they're the type of person that's wearing a LifeKey, I guarantee you, they probably won't go shopping with you, for you. They'll probably rat on you, say, oh, he doesn't have a LifeKey. He should be doing his own goddamn shopping. This is the next phase. The next phase after that is, hey, guess what? We don't need those pesky LifeKeys anymore. You know, use your cell phone. Everybody's got a cell phone. If you don't have a cell phone, you know, you're not American or you're not a global citizen. Global citizen, where's your cell phone? You just hear the drone. Global citizen. Our sensors detect that you are not carrying your cell phone. Please return home and do not re-enter public space without your cell phone. Repeat, global citizen, our sensors detect you are not carrying your cell phone. Please return home. And of course, ultimately, what are we talking about? We're talking about the chip. The chippy dip. Now, recently, and I say recently, as of yesterday, there's a new interview with Whitney Webb, whose work I actually like a lot. And she was on a show by a guy I'd never heard of, but apparently he's quite popular. I believe he was a comedian. His name is Tim Dillon. There's some connection with him in Comedy Central. Looks like he's got a pretty good YouTube channel. He's interviewed Whitney Webb a couple of times. And she had Maria Baker. She did an interview with Maria Baker, who was one of Epstein's girls. Lots of revelations about that. Very interesting stuff. But the thing that really grabbed me in that 90-minute interview, and I'll put that link in the show page as well. The thing that really grabbed me was when she broke this down. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you the next level of not just the coronavirus pandemic, but the post-industrial society that we're going to be living in, right? This is the fourth industrial wave and the creation of the National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence. So this is from RAND. This is from the RAND Corporation. Send us your ideas. That was the open call for submissions about emerging technologies' role in global order, put out last summer by the National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence, NSCAI. RAND researchers stepped up to the challenge, and a wide range of ideas were submitted. 10 essays were ultimately accepted for publication. The NCSIA, co-chaired by Eric Schmidt. Remember old Eric Schmidt, Mr. Alphabet? The former chief executive of Alphabet, Google's parent company, and Robert Work, the former deputy secretary of defense, is a congressionally mandated, independent federal commission set up last year to consider the methods and means necessary to advance the development of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and associated technologies by the United States to comprehensively address the national security and defense needs of the United States. So this is where it starts. Following this mandate, the commissioning of outside-the-box input came with an unusually broad public request. We need to hear original creative ideas to challenge the status quo, shake our assumptions, will cause us to reconsider the arguments we've already heard, hear new arguments in a different light, never fearful of the bold and the new. RAND quickly hosted a competition within its ranks, of course within its ranks, for the best ideas. It worked. After presenting a number of insightful essays for consideration, 9 were accepted for publication by the NCSIA's media partner on this effort, War on the Rocks, and a 10th was accepted by the Strategy Bridge. Both are highly regarded national security policy publications. The essays range in scope and subject matter from military deception to open source research, meaning they'll be freely and publicly available, even with the matters of national security, to how to train AI soldier robots. Oh, to the role of chess in AI, among other detailed proposals. So here we go. These are all the wonderful papers. All the discusses managing security threats to machine learning. Patrick Roberts writes on AI for peace. He says the United States should apply lessons from the 70-year history of governing nuclear technology by building a framework for governing AI military technology. Going further, he argues an AI for peace program should articulate the dangers of this new technology, e.g. no kill, human control off switch to manage the dangers and a structure to shape the incentives for other states, perhaps a system of monitoring and inspection. And this goes on and on and on. Thomas Hamilton writes about how to train your AI soldier robots. Christopher Paul, Mark Pozard write about the artificial intelligence and the manufacturing of reality. They say there are flaws humans carry with them in deciding on what is real or not. The internet and other technologies have made it easier to weaponize and exploit these flaws, beguiling more people faster and more compelling than ever before. Don't worry, AI has a solution. Now, here's this organization, the NSCAI, okay? What the NSCAI is essentially planning on doing, and there's a Freedom of Information Act redacted document that's just came out, and this story is going to break this week. You're going to hear a lot more about it. Is that these guys, Eric Schmidt, formerly of Google, some of these guys from In-Q-Tel, Oracle, Facebook, they are going to come together, and their idea, their plan is to out China, okay? Because they look at China and they say, well, China doesn't have any controls. They don't have any restrictions. They don't have any of these, niggling and problematic issues around freedom and individual rights. So they can do whatever the fuck they want. Like, how can we compete against that? Yeah, China is a psychopathic monster. China's a psychopathic monster. So remember, in order to compete with the psychopath, you either have to do one of two things. You either have to become a psychopath and a bigger and better psychopath than the psychopath, or you have to completely opt out and try your best to not succumb to the psychopathic system. Hopefully there's other people there that are with you and you can kind of support your own education, enlightenment, and support by banding together against the freaking psychopaths. Well, these guys are going to the other side, right? They're saying, well, we can't allow them to do that. Shit. We got to be better psychopaths than they are. So they're looking at becoming even more involved in managing people and directing what people can and cannot do. So some of the things that have come out of this Freedom of Information document, maybe I'll try to find and bring it up tomorrow, is that they want to get rid of what's called legacy industries and legacy businesses. Things like supermarkets, gone, see you later. Adios, goodbye. Money, which is for the most part kind of intractable, gone. They don't want that. Individual car ownership, gone. They don't want that. Freedom See you later. They want surveillance. And they want to move people into their smart cities. This is what a lot of this is all about. So these guys, it's kind of like the Elon Musk model. In order to beat AI, we have to become AI and become a better version of AI. In order to beat China, we got to become China and be better at being China than China. It's the marketplace, because if we don't do it, China's going to dominate the marketplace because they don't have any checks and balances. They're able to do whatever they want. When it comes to CRISPR technology and it comes to gene editing, they can do whatever they want. Here we still have a modicum of ethics, a modicum. So in this regard, China is incredibly dangerous. It's not dangerous from this kind of idea that they're going to unleash another virus. It's not dangerous to the extent that they have controlled most of the manufacturing for decades now. It's not dangerous in the sense that they control a lot of politicians due to the fact that they have invested in their campaigns. Although put together, those are all three really serious pieces that make China a significant threat. No, the real threat to China is that they have become a fully functioning psychopathic entity. And they have proven that their psychopathic model works for them. That's the most dangerous threat that China brings to the table. Because these other psychopaths are drooling. They're looking at China like it is a $150, 6-ounce filet mignon, and a bottle of Le Petit Rothschild from 1936, and a 15-year-old for dessert. Right? That's what they're looking at with China right now. And they want that. They want that. They want that unbridled, unhindered, unfettered system with none of these really petty concerns around freedoms and personal rights. They're licking their chops. And this is what's happening now. Within a very brief period of time, they adopted the Chinese model. Now, they didn't bolt us in to our apartments like the Chinese did in Wuhan. About as close as you can get. They know their limits here a little bit in America. But that's where this is headed. And those are the guys that are driving the program. And who's going to be behind them? People like LifeKey, people like Bill Gates, people like Verizon, people like Apple, people like Microsoft, people like Amazon, people like Walmart. I tell you, it's not going to be behind them. It's going to be the automakers. They're not going to be behind them. But the automakers probably get their big fat bailouts or whatever. They'll be moved over into some other legacy, new non-legacy industry. They'll produce the smart cars, the autonomous smart cars. That's where it's headed. And it always seems to be the so-called smartest guys in the room or smartest women in the room, whoever. So remember now, two layers of reality, right? Two layers of reality. The one reality is saying, stay home, be safe, we'll take care of you. We like you. You're important to us. We care about you. We care about your family. The underlying layer of reality is that they're putting the pieces together so that you will never, ever, ever get to experience freedom and autonomy again, no matter how truncated or how decimated that had become over the last 20 years. We'll look at the post 9/11 years with fondness, with glee and delight. Now, the game isn't over. It's not over. Remember, it is a game. It's a cosmic game, and it's not over. And the stakes just get higher. That's all. They just get higher. And the next level of the game is the creative and novel response. You notice how they call it novel? Novel. Because they look at this thing as being somehow novel or unique or new. Well, guess what? You're a virus. I'm a virus. We're all viruses, and we're just as novel. We're just as novel, or if not more novel. And that, I think, is the antidote to this. Not the coronavirus, but the mind virus that is set in as a result. So try to find unique ways in your own life to respond to the crisis of the time, the trauma of the time of your own life. You be the person that thinks outside the box. And by the way, I read those things. Were those really outside the box ideas? It's like that. Is that the best fucking rant you come up with? Oh, I'm sure there are really outside the box ideas, but they're not going to promote them. They'll promote their version of outside the box, right? We decided to do some really outside the box thinking, right? So have your own outside the box thinking. Have your own novel response to our current condition, whatever it is. Some people are being forced to wear masks. Figure out where you want to wear a mask. Maybe you want to get together about 8 or 9 people, all 6 feet apart, and not wear masks together, and see what happens. See what happens. Or maybe you want to put a meme on your mask, right? Novel response. Novel response. If the mask is a suggestion, which they are, they're suggestions. What's wrong with questioning the suggestion? There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with questioning the suggestion or having some clarification on the suggestion. All right, let me check in with you guys. Let's see where you're at. I'm about ready to wrap up here. Let's see. Come on now. Come on. 159 people. That's pretty good. I'm just trying to get current with chat. Diana says magic is easier than we think. Yes. Yes. Left brain have the intellectuals and the arrogance. I will never wear a mask. Make yourself invisible to your enemies. I like that. They've been limiting dried cow dung. No more agni horta or cooked food. It is a cosmic game. Yep. It's a trap. It's the equivalent to a narcissist who loves bombs, who love bombs and ghost you, is what they say or what they make to appear. Finette says, Steve Mercer, you're correct about the propaganda buildup. Sadly, most Canada will not see what is right in front of their face. True. True, true, true. Zane Levitt on public policy, Zbigniew Brzezinski, Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic Era. Great reference, Zane Ivey, great reference. There is no reason to believe that scientific competence is sufficient for relevant judgments concerning all areas of social existence. Totally agree. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. What else do we have here? What island am I on? This is the island of sanity. I'm on the island of sanity. Good to see you, Michael. Good to see you. Welcome to the corporate Holy Roman Empire. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hijacking our awakening. Definitely. Definitely. Reread the Celestine prophecy. You guys are so smart. What groups are growing and coming out to rebel against the AI programs? Yeah, so we're gonna have to even out trick AI. Won't that accelerate our abilities? Yeah, could be fun. Could be real fun. All right, everybody. Hey, thanks for being here today. Appreciate you all. I'm getting back online again. I just after the webinar on Saturday, I've been working basically from sunrise to about 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, trying to answer as many emails as possible, work on the personal front, doing readings for folks and working with them. So I just had to take a little bit of time out, but 24 hours later, I'm refreshed, revved up and ready to go. Be back tomorrow with another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. Thank you. Love you all. If you want to support this, I'll have a link after the show gets processed. You want to subscribe to this, you're welcome to do that. I've got tons of archives too. That's the other thing that I don't talk a lot about. But if you go on this channel and my other channel, which YouTube now will not allow me to stream on, I just get one choice, and that's this one. I've got years worth of archives that are all public and lots of really great interviews from Jay Widener to Bruce Lipton to Don Miguel Ruiz. I've got tons of stuff. Most of it's on the other channel. So, you know, avail yourself of some of those. Some of that stuff is really, really good material. And it's all there. All right. Love you all. Bless you all. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to discern what's possible. Oh, he wants a closing prayer. All right, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that one more time. All right, we'll do that. Good idea, Stephen. I actually thought about that. Send it on out of here. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Thank you very much. Be back tomorrow, kicking it off with that very same prayer. Take good care of yourself. Bye for now.